What up, folks? Jiu-Jitsu here. Question for you. What is the most difficult part about training? What is it? Is it rolling, remembering techniques? For me, probably was rolling. I talked about this in the other video that kind of getting anxiety and things before rolling. But another thing I noticed, and I've seen this in other martial arts, where consistency and repetition and techniques. So I may go months or a year. I actually keep a journal, which I'll talk about that in a minute, where I might see, a sweep or the Shaolin sweep for that matter. I might see that once, and then maybe a year later I might see it. So how do you keep up? Like, what can you do to actually remember things? What I did, instead of writing like a full journal, if you can't film and things like that, which gets really complicated and you don't really want people on video or people don't want to be filmed, make a set of notes. What I do in my notes, and I'll show an example of this, I write down what we did that day and names of techniques if I can remember them, and just some description because it's on point. It won't make sense or it will make sense because they get complicated. So we did armbar from guard, or we did a lapel choke from back take, or whatever. That helped. And now, a couple years in at this gym, and I wish I did this when I started originally before the big C19 broke everything for everybody. I realized, hey, there's some things that I'm seeing here. And another thing I do just to keep track of what's working and what's not, this is totally up to you. I keep track of submissions too. Like, because I want to see as I progress, and this might just be a little quirk of mine or just something that, I can look back at later as I'm growing. What was I doing back then? So instead of it being a long, complicated process, it takes me like a minute or two after class or after I eat or before I go to bed if I'm kind of wired. I'll just say, hey, let me write down in my notes and say, you know what, we worked on this today, what I liked, what I didn't like. Maybe have a little section where I'll say, hey, here's the submissions I landed. So these are the things I'm getting better at so I can keep track of them. And then the other thing is stuff I need to work on. So if I got feedback from coaches that says, hey, something like, you move too fast, slow down your techniques and settle into positions, because I've gotten that feedback. That goes in my notes. So it makes it a lot easier to track things. Now, for some people, that might be real difficult, but it's willing to give a shot. At least start thinking about those things, and then you'll have, I think a little easier time coming up to a point where you can remember techniques or at least the names of them. And then when you start to see things again, you'll feel a lot better. And then there's things you can look at. I mean, there's tons of resources on the internet. Obviously, be careful and look at what I try to do is look at the basics. I mean, there's fancy things out there. Go ahead. You can always get a coach to help you. But those things are struggling. We're in the age of the internet. Obviously, you can just go get on the internet and find resources too. Just there's plenty of reputable sources out there. Pick your poison. Pick your poison. And then if you're unsure if these sources or things are too fancy or things like that, you can always ask your peers or your coaches, hey, I'm looking at blah, blah, blah. Do you have recommendations? I get that all the time because maybe your coaches or your peers or whoever's teaching, maybe they're doing things in these videos that they're not comfortable with. So maybe there's something that's not in their game or something they're not, super proficient at. Maybe they're comfortable with teaching it, but to go in depth, maybe that's the piece you need to go and look at another resource. So anyway, that's my thought. Tap in. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.